Hey everyone, welcome back to my YouTube channel. My name is Titus. Now in this video, I want to give you guys 5 plants that is easy to look after if you're just a beginner. So I hope that you guys will stick around to watch that. Alright, so let's get started. So the first one on my list are succulents. Okay, so if you haven't watched my previous video before about plant tips for beginners, I said succulents are actually one of the most easiest plants to look after. So I've got here 2 of my top picks that are really easy to look after, and I'll get them out for you. So the first succulent I wanted to show you guys is the Jade Plant. Okay, so as you guys will probably see there, I'm gonna hide my face. It is actually very luscious and you guys can find this nearly everywhere, but it's really hard to get that really defined green type, and unless you keep it really healthy, sometimes it may turn to red if it is cold, and or sometimes lightish white as well if you're not looking after it. And that's not the variegated type of jade plant, but just the usual one. So as you can see here, this is one of my favorites. I've actually grown this jade plant since it was like probably that big, from I don't know if it's last year or 2 years ago, but as you can see, it's grown really big and full, and I've actually pruned this how many times already to give it that fuller, lusher, bushy look as well. Alright, so that's one of the succulents that I would recommend. So Jade Plant. Alright, so the next one that I want to talk about is the Aloe Vera. Okay, so right here, can't even fit in the whole camera, and I'm really mindful that it doesn't break my other plants, is the giant Aloe Vera. It's really massive, but obviously if you have more space, these plants are so easy to look after, and I wish I could just bring it up more so you guys can see it. So these plants are so easy to look after, and plus it's got the benefit of you being able to harvest its leaves for natural moisturizer, for your face, for your hair, which I've done so already as well, and also for wounds as well. So this one is very nice and easy to look after outside if you just leave it out and water it every so often. Even if you forget to water it, it's fine because it's got a lot of fluid inside of it. It can really maintain itself. So yeah, that's my number 2 plant, Aloe Vera. Now going back to the succulents. Now the reason why I would recommend succulents to be one of your beginner plants is because they're so easy to look after. They're so full of fluid inside of it, so if you do forget to water it, it's totally fine. They will still continue to grow, and they can probably just shrink their leaves a little bit if ever they're dehydrated. Now how you would know whether to start watering these plants is actually if it starts becoming a bit crinkly or cracky, and you'll see a little fissure lines in between the leaves as well. So that's your obvious sign that it needs to get watered. Make sure that you have pots that actually have drainage holes on it, because they hate sitting on watery roots. Alright, if that happens, then most likely it will die. It will go really mushy, and then eventually, and honestly I've seen this before, they'll literally just melt away. Okay, they will literally melt if you put too much water on it. But I would still highly recommend having these. Okay, if you're lucky enough, during winter and or autumn, they would actually flower if you like flowering plants as well. Alright, that's about it. Those 2 succulents. So you've got your jade plant and then the aloe vera. So the next plant that I want to talk about that's also very easy to look after and very common, you can find them pretty much everywhere if you're here in Australia, is peace lilies, okay, or spathiphyllums. So this is just a variety of the smaller version of peace lily, and yes, if you're lucky, you will eventually get those little flowers on it. This one actually had 5 before, but because it's time for them to die off, I've cut them off. Okay, and that's just a natural thing for flowers to do eventually. Alright, so this one at the back here is a giant version of it. Okay, so it's a sensation plant, I think that's what it's called, but it's also a spathiphyllum and it's a giant version of it. You probably can't see how big it is, but it's literally massive. It's almost like a banana leaf. So if you want an alternative to a banana leaf inside your house or a banana tree, then you can get a peace lily instead. The sensation variety of it. Alright, going back to the smaller peace lily. Now, the reason why I recommend you guys getting one of these is because they're so easy to look after. As you can see, they're bushy, they're green, they're really nice to have in a corner of your house. And these plants will actually require very, very little water. Well, it really depends. So once it needs water, it will wilt, so you don't need to keep watering it. Okay, so it's very dramatic and kind of scary when you first see it, but eventually it will perk up, so you don't need to worry about it. If you do find that maybe some of the leaves are turning a bit brown on the tips, then maybe perhaps it's good to occasionally mist it, or if you buy a diffuser, that might probably help out. But I found that spraying these is actually fine. And in our house, and we live in Melbourne, it's quite a dry, arid kind of weather here, and this plant is still thriving, so it must like that. Alright, the next plant that I want to talk about is the pothos. Now, there are a variety of pothos that you guys will be able to see in the market, but one of the really, really easy ones that you can get started with is the golden pothos. Okay, so this golden pothos that I have here, believe it or not, when I first bought it last year, probably this one's 1 year and 2 months now, years old, but when I first bought this, it's literally 2 leaves. And look how crazy it is with how fast it's growing. So oftentimes I found that the growth of plants is quite exponential, because obviously the more leaves it has, the more capacity for it to actually absorb energy and produce more leaves. So this one started off with 2 leaves, and I really, really, really love this plant. Look at it. Is it going to focus? There you go. So nice. Okay. So I loved it so much that I bought a second one. So at the back here, and you guys have probably seen this in the previous videos that I've made, because I really love it. It's in a totem pole as well, and it's very, very huge, and it's still growing, as you guys can see. And the reason why I bought another one is because of this particular leaf, if you guys can see, if it'll focus right there. So as you can see, it's half marble queen and half golden pothos, if you guys are familiar with the variety of pothos. In another video, I might talk about the different type of pothos, but this one that I really, really love is the golden pothos. Another name for it is devil's ivy or Scindapsus aureus. Okay, so this is one of the other beginner plants that I recommend you guys should get started with. They're very, very easy to propagate, and also it requires very, very little water as well. You'll notice that it needs to start having more water if it starts to sort of feel a bit more soft. And I think the more plants that you have, the more that you'll be able to tell whether or not, you know, it really needs water just by feeling its leaves. Okay, so that's that. Alright, and if you guys haven't noticed so far, those last 2 plants that I've been talking about are indoor plants, and they are very, very easy to look after. This third one I'm going to mention is also an indoor plant, and you literally can see them everywhere now. And this plant is no other than the Monstera deliciosa. Okay, so this is one of the plants that I have. It's actually got a brother or sister, you would say, that's currently downstairs from our house, and I've literally have split them both together because they've grown so big, and it's still growing. So as you can see at the very bottom, the juvenile leaves won't have any fenestration, which is basically those little holes that are on it. Okay, and the more bigger they grow, the more holes they actually get. So there you go, and I've got a small leaf unfurling right there. So it's really nice, and they're very easy to look after. As you can see, there's no browning in there, no blackening in there, because they require very, very little water. And again, this plant will actually wilt if it does need water. It doesn't mean that it's dying, it just means that you need to start watering it. it can actually grow really well in a small pot, and you want to allow it to get root bound first before you repot it. So yeah, that's one of my top pick. Another monstera that I want to show you guys, which I got from a friend, is this one. So this one's a little bit more mature, even though it's only got 3 leaves. As you can see, it's got more fenestrations on it. And I am really loving looking after this plant, okay, because they're very nice. They can almost like be an umbrella cover shade. And some things that I didn't tell you about indoor plants is that they require very little sunlight, okay? So if you're looking after indoor plants, one of the things that I thought would help is if you put them on direct sunlight, it would turn even darker green, but actually they don't, okay? They require very little sunlight purely because originally where they're from, they're sitting on the bottom of a rainforest where literally they're just getting dabs of sunlight. So if you're looking after peace lilies, monsteras, or pothos, you don't need to put them on direct sunlight. In fact, if you put them in direct sunlight, it'll probably just burn it and have browning on it. So just be careful with that. And those are pretty much those 5 different plants that I want to leave you guys with if you want to get started. So again, number 1 would be your jade plant, number 2 would be your aloe veras, number 3 would be your pothos varieties, but if you want, you can get started with the devil's ivy. 4th one is peace lily, and then the last one is your monstera deliciosas. Okay, so some other plants that's worth mentioning is actually these ones as well. So those are my top 5, but here are some additional bonus ones just in case you want some other plants that you can readily access. Alright, so from my previous videos, I've been talking about my avocado that I'm so proud to own, and this one's really grown quite taller from the last videos, the last time I shot it, because it's actually moving higher, and you guys can't see it, but it's moving higher from that actual bamboo pole that I've put on it. Okay, so if you guys want to know how to grow an avocado from a seed, then I did make videos in relation to that, so I hope that you guys will watch that. I'm hiding behind the foliage because it's so big. But yeah, this is another really easy plant to look after, and I've got some avocado care tips as well from the previous videos that I made. Alright, another plant that's probably worth mentioning, although I'm not very proud of it to be honest, is the ZZ plant. Okay, so if you guys will notice, it's in a pot, but in actual fact I used to have a larger, more bushier, fuller looking ZZ plant, but what happened was either when I bought it the roots were already rotting and therefore I had to cut every single stem off to actually revive it, or I've actually watered it once and it started causing root rot. So either one of them have probably caused it to die. So they said that this plant is actually really easy to look after, and I've even read somewhere that you only need to water it twice a year or even maybe once a year if it's really big. Okay, but this plant actually had roots rotting, and therefore I had to cut every single stem to save it, and I heard that you can literally propagate this straight from a stem. So I'm leaving its bottom part to callus to actually allow for it to later on grow roots at the bottom. So we'll see how that goes. I guess in a future video I might update you guys on how that's going, but at the moment I'm really not very happy with how this is going, although it's still green despite of it not having roots, so that's probably a good thing. The other thing that's actually also worth mentioning and very easy to look after, but I'm not sure if you guys will like it, are air plants. So I might make a separate video of it, but I've just got this air plant right here in this glass. Okay, and it's got 2 little babies right there if you guys can see it. Okay, so this one requires literally no water nearly, and for 2 weeks this substrate that I put in there, it's actually just sand to be honest, and some rocks, and this one's not actually rooting there. In fact, you can lift it off, and oh, I've now disassembled every single one of them, but you can literally lift it off, and the way I water it is I just soak it underwater. No, not underwater. I just literally water it thoroughly, dry it, and then pop it back into its nice glass pot. I guess you would call it. So that's another easy plant to look after. So I guess that's about it, guys. I hope that can you know, help you get started with regards to hunting for those different plants that I just talked about if you're just starting. I hope you guys like this video. If you do, then please click that like button. If you want to see me make more videos, then please click that subscribe button. I also want to see in your comments down below if you want any other plant tips that you want me to make a video on. So that's it, guys. I will see you guys on the next video. Until then, goodbye and God bless.